Chiropractic adjustments, how often do you need one? I'm going to explain the bigger picture so that you understand the variables that determine how often you might need one. Coming right up. Hey, I'm Dr. Ekberg with Wellness for Life, and if you'd like to truly master health by understanding how the body really works, make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss anything. Chiropractors often get criticized for adjusting so much that they sell care plans to people that go on 3 times a week for 3 months, twice a week for 3 months, and once a week for the rest of your life. So why do they do that? And is there a way that we can get fewer adjustments and still get the same results or even better? So let's talk about all these factors. First of all, before we can answer the question of how often, we need to understand several different things. So first of all, what is an adjustment? And with that, I don't mean the twisting and the cracking or using an instrument. That's just the action, but what's the mechanism? When we do an adjustment, what's the mechanism? How does it influence the body? How does it change anything? Because it is not about moving the bone. I don't care how many chiropractors have told you that it is about the alignment of the bone. That's not what it's about. If it was about moving the bone, then you would simply find the misalignment, you would move the bone from A to B, and you'd be done. All right? But that's not the case. If that was the case, you would need one adjustment. But there are other factors involved. So it's not about moving the bone, it's about the effect on the brain, what happens in the brain when you move the bone, because the brain controls and regulates everything in your body. So if an adjustment has a benefit, it's because it affected the brain somehow. It changed the brain's perception, it changed the brain's ability to carry out its actions. So what effects does it have on the brain? First, it is stimulation. Okay? When we move something, we activate receptors, we activate muscle spindles, we activate mechanoreceptors, stretch receptors, and we send signals to the brain. That's number one, and this has been verified by EEG, electroencephalograms, in dozens, if not hundreds of studies. When we stimulate, when we do something like an adjustment, which is also very quick and very sudden, it's very different from a stretch, for example, we have a pattern interrupt. It's like a defibrillation in a sense. It's like a surprise to the brain. And these can also be verified on EEGs. The other thing to understand is that it is a patterning retraining, that every skill that you have, whether it is in sports, whether it's throwing a basketball, shooting hoops, if it's playing an instrument, playing piano or violin, you're not going to create a habit, you're not going to get skilled in one attempt. You're going to have to do it over and over and over, because all skills that you have are patterns in your nervous system. It is by creating habits and patterns and pathways that are habituated that you can carry out actions and skills automatically. So posture, muscle spasms, they're also habits. Misalignments are also habits that we need to interrupt and that we need to retrain. So adjusting is a skill retraining, and it takes a certain amount of repetition. Okay? There's no way around that. Here is where, and this is where chiropractors agree that yes, it takes a lot of repetition, but the question is how much repetition and what are the other factors involved that might reduce the need for so much repetition. Or if you've been adjusted for a year and you see temporary results and then it goes right back to where it was. What's going on? Why doesn't it take? Why doesn't it last? What is required for an adjustment to work? So first of all, we know that an adjustment is a signal. So in order for it to work, the brain has to process that signal. it has to be able to understand it, it has to metabolize it. Okay? Brain cells have a metabolism, they have energy expenditure. It requires energy to process a signal. So in order to process the signal, the brain requires glucose, or in some cases ketones. If you're on a ketogenic diet, your brain learns to utilize more ketones than glucose. It also needs oxygen, and these two are enough to process the signal temporarily. But that is not going to change the skill, because in order to change the skill, in order to retrain the pattern, we have to make new synapses. We have to enhance, we have to enlarge the pathways involved, and that means we have to build something. We have to add materials. We have to have raw materials with which to build new synapses and new pathways and strengthen the nerves involved. So now we also need building blocks. That's nutrition, that's essential fatty acids and cholesterol and essential amino acids. And in order to utilize those things, we need enzymes and vitamins and minerals and cofactors and food factors, that there are tens of thousands that we know of and even more that we don't know of. But that's the stuff in whole food. And that's why when we eat processed foods, we can be deficient in the building blocks and the cofactors needed to process those signals. So nutrition becomes incredibly important for the adjustment to work. So there are a few things that can interfere with this signal. So if we adjust over and over, we make a change and then it's back to where it was, then the brain is either missing something, like we said, the nutrition, or there is something else interfering with that signal over and over and over. It's like a circuit breaker. It trips, you fix it, and it trips again. Well, what was it that tripped it again? And this is what we have found over and over is maybe the most important factor to address today, even before or at the same time that you start adjusting at all. And if someone has poor digestion, then they're going to have inflammation and they're going to have deficiencies because they can't break down the food, so it causes inflammation. They can't break down the food, so they can't absorb the micronutrients. So now they don't have the nutrients necessary to process the signal and to rebuild synapses and pathways. So what we can do is we can identify if they have a food sensitivity. We can give them a digestive enzyme. So now they break the food down better, we reduce the inflammation, they absorb more food, that we give them some nutrients. So now there's fewer deficiencies. Now they have the building blocks and the raw materials to actually process the signal and to create new synapses. And this is the difference between an adjustment that is short-term effect and that starts lasting longer and longer. But there can be other things interfering as well. So if they have a metal toxicity, a metal can sit in a synapse. It can block a receptor. It can block a crucial function in the body so that we adjust and then that circuit breaker goes off again. Same thing with chemicals. So the body has a normal way, a natural way of dealing with toxins. We eliminate toxins through the liver and through the bowel and the kidneys and the lungs and the skin. But if the body gets overwhelmed or if it gets stressed or deficient, then it has a lesser ability to get rid of these things, and now they start accumulating until they become a problem and tripping these circuit breakers, if you will. So by assisting the body, by helping the liver, by taking some homeopathics to assist the body in eliminating toxins, we're actually supporting that adjustment. There are also other factors. There are immune factors. If you have chronic pathogens, if you have chronic inflammations, if you have sinus infections, if you have a poor gut flora, then all of those are factors. And we've talked in other videos about scars, and another factor is electromagnetic fields, because your body is in electromagnetic fields. If you have a lot of electromagnetic fields around you, it interferes with your body's ability to adapt. It makes it more difficult. The body has to expend more energy to compensate for that external electromagnetic field. So these are all different reasons and different factors that are important to understand of why the adjustment may or may not work so well. So 50, 60, 70 years ago, people got a few adjustments and they got tremendous results because we didn't have such processed food, such poor digestion. We didn't have so many deficiencies. We didn't have metal toxicity, chemical toxicity. They've added 80,000 chemicals in our environment since 1950. It was a different world, and these are the factors that have changed that we need to understand. These are the real reasons why we get sick and why chiropractic doesn't work as quickly as it used to. So if you've had chiropractic care for years and you're just getting better and then you're kind of just coming back to the same place all the time, then it might be time to find someone that can address some of these other factors, or encourage your existing chiropractor to maybe look for some of these things or ask about those. In our office, we have had people come from other chiropractors. They've said, oh, I went to this place for a year, I've been adjusted every week for 2 years, and the adjustment holds for 2-3 days. And then we start helping them with these factors, some digestive enzymes, some metal and chemical detoxification, and all of a sudden their adjustments start holding, and rather quickly we see them once a month and they're doing just great. So everyone's different. This is not something that's going to happen every time, but very, very often we find that these are the factors that really determine how well that adjustment is going to work. Because it's not about moving the bone. It's about creating a signal, helping the brain develop a new pattern, and having the nutritional status, the ability to process the energy, to create the energy to process that signal, to have the building blocks to create new patterns and new synapses. The body is an ecosystem and everything works together. So how often do you need to get adjusted? I suggest that you need to get adjusted 3 times a week initially to interrupt the pattern and to start the pattern retraining. But if you have a proper nutritional status, you should already start to see some stabilization. Again, everyone's different. This might happen in 2 weeks for some people and 4 weeks in other people. But it should not have to go on for months and months and months at that frequency. Then there are other reasons, there are other factors that are not being addressed. And I believe that maintenance chiropractic is incredibly important. We should never, ever stop getting adjusted entirely because of all these different reasons. We live in a different world. We live in a very stressful, toxic world, and chiropractic has the ability to create pattern interrupts and resets that can be incredibly powerful. I believe a maintenance for most people should be maybe once a month, every 6 weeks, every couple of months. Very few people can go even longer than that and still do well. But again, it's not about symptoms. It is about having a fully functional body, to have all the organs and all the synapses, to have a stable brain that can sleep well and function well and think well, that has good endurance, that doesn't fatigue easily from physical movement or mental tasks. That's all a part of health. And by understanding these factors, you have the bigger picture that can help you understand what chiropractic does and how to get truly healthy. So watch as many of our videos as you can, because these are things that we talk about from different angles in all of those. If you enjoy this sort of content, make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that we can keep this content coming your way. And please share this information, because very, very few people, even very few chiropractors, understand what chiropractic is. They are great at moving the bone, they're great at getting people better, but they don't really understand the profound brain effects and the complex picture that they're influencing. So share this with as many people as you can, because it will save lives, and there's so many people who would go to a chiropractor if they understood even a little bit of this. Thank you so much for watching.